All right, everybody, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Today we have Adam Munsterteiger covering Colorado for 24/7s. Again, this is all part of our Big 12 fall preview. So we thank Adam for taking the time today. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I am doing all right. I appreciate
By the way,
you.
it was great to finally meet you in person out at Big 12 Media Days.
Yes, absolutely, man. I actually had a blast. That was my first one. Had a good time. It was good to put. I guess we actually do see each other, but it was just good to meet people and to shake your hand. So I appreciate you giving me that opportunity. So thank you, and giving us an opportunity for giving your time on for the Big 12 Insider. So want to thank you for that. Let's talk about Colorado here. Obviously, 4-8 season last year, not what they wanted. They're going to get the constant spotlight because of who Coach Prime is, but kind of give us the overview of the program as it sits with fall camp, going through the camp a couple of weeks. What is the feel of the program right now?
The feel of the program is that it's on much better footing from a depth standpoint than it was going into last year because Coach Prime gets to Colorado after coaching in the Celebration Bowl. And, it was kind of a rush process to try to put this roster together. You got some really good talent in this program, but not the depth that you needed. And so once they started sustaining some injuries or they found out certain offensive linemen weren't up to snuff to play at the power conference level, they just didn't have other guys to turn to that they could, really have deep competition at positions. And so another 2 transfer cycles has really fortified both lines. Now, this is preseason camp. They have not been tested against another team. So there are a lot of people, and rightfully so, that are just kind of waiting. I want to see this for myself before I really believe in it. But the resume of the guys they brought in on both lines is so much better than the guys they did a year ago. And so we already knew that Colorado had the skill talent, and they did add a couple top receivers this offseason to replace Xavier Weaver, who's now with the Cardinals, in LeJontay Wester and Will Shepard coming over from Vanderbilt. So they still have the skill talent, but the trenches is really where the focus has been in terms of a lot of our discussion leading up to the season, because if the trenches are drastically improved like we expected, and there really aren't question marks with the skill players, then all of a sudden you've got a football team that's going to be able to compete week in and week out.
Right. And that's where, a lot of people last year we just saw it. I mean, with the first game, I think was kind of fool's gold because it kind of tricked everybody into thinking, oh, okay, they've got this figured out. But when you started to get into the weeds a little bit and people had a little bit of tape on you, then it was like, well, hold on a second. Not only can they not run the football, they can't hold up against anybody that's trying to run the football. So there's things to take advantage of. So we'll start with those 2 things. We don't really have to talk about whether they were weaknesses last year because we all saw that. Let's start with the offensive line. Where have they beefed up? Who are some of the impact players that are going to change life for the Colorado offense from last year to this year? Some of those guys up front that are going to help do that.
Well, it really started with Khalil Benson coming in, and he comes over from Indiana where he played a lot of football. And as much as they think that he can help them either being a right guard or a right tackle this season, it was the mentality and just kind of bringing that group to kind of have an edge to them. Last year, Colorado's offensive line turtled when the going got tough. And, when Travis Hunter had that cheap shot on him in the Colorado State game, who was the one person that ran down the field and got in everybody's face? It was Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback.
Right.
When Shedeur Sanders was getting knocked down time and time again, where were those offensive linemen? They were on a consistent basis picking Shedeur Sanders, their quarterback, up off the ground. And there was just a lack of confidence in that group. And so Khalil Benson comes in and he's trying to fight somebody every day in practice. And even the guys on defense will say they love it because it kind of pushes them a little bit. Off the field, it's not like he's a guy that's causing issues in the locker room. So it really started with that. He came in on his official visit with Justin Mayers, who's going to be their starting left guard. He comes in from UTEP and is a guy that kind of is a fringe NFL prospect, but there's just not a lot of eyes on UTEP. So he made a very smart decision coming to Colorado where all eyes are going to be on the offensive line. So He came in on his official visit with Benson at the same time, Tyler Johnson, who transferred in from Houston, and they were out, and just a person out in Boulder started chirping at Shedeur Sanders. Those offensive linemen had his back, and it was before they even got on campus. It signaled that there was this different mentality. They've really rallied around this DT2, don't touch two mantra, and so again, live bullets are going to be flying soon, and we're going to find out how improved that group is. But the floor of that group is so much higher than it was last year. What is the ceiling? Again, I don't know, but I do know that there's going to be a mentality with that group. And Tyler Brown's the one last guy I'll mention there. He was a former FCS All-American that they expected to be a starter last year, and they thought it was a slam dunk because earlier in his college career, he had witnessed his position coach, the guy that recruited him to Louisiana Lafayette, pass away right in front of him in practice. And so it was a really tough road for him mentally. He went to Jackson State and kind of got back on track. And he met once a week with Coach Prime just on the mental health side of things. And they expected that he was going to get a waiver to be eligible right away last year. It didn't come. And so that was one of the things that they were banking on that didn't come through. Well, he's eligible now, and he's going to be probably their starting right tackle. So now left tackle Jordan Seaton. I lied. I was just going to mention one more guy, but you have to mention Jordan Seaton, the five-star freshman that's going to be starting at left tackle. He looks the part. He's going to be a future NFL draft pick. But we saw with Caden Proctor at Alabama last year, it takes some time no matter how good you are. And so that's maybe the biggest question mark in terms of this group going into this season is just starting a 19-year-old to protect Shedeur Sanders' blindside. So that'll be fun to watch this fall.
Yeah. And the offensive line, just because of the skill position players, Shedeur Sanders, they get most of the, if you could even say, limelight that an offensive lineman could actually get. But defensive side of the ball, they need to be some turnover there as far as, especially on up front. Guys getting after the quarterback, stopping the run. What are some of the things that they have done to try to alleviate some of that leakage from last season?
Yeah, they, again, kind of similar to the offensive line, they realized they didn't have enough depth or enough top end talent in terms of guys that had experience at the power conference level. So now they've got 8 scholarship defensive linemen, and that includes Amari McNeil and Shane Cokes, who were their best 2 defensive linemen last year that are back. The other guys are new guys that have come into the mix. And so you bring in BJ Green, who was one of the best pass rushers in the Pac-12 last year. You expect big things out of him. On the edge, you bring on Deion Hayes, who was Pittsburgh's top pass rusher last year. So you've improved there. Now, the run defense part of it, they brought in more size. Inquin Barnes comes in. He's a 300-pounder. Tariq Carter, Torian Carter comes in from Arkansas. He's over 300 pounds. So they have more of those big bodies on that group than they did a year ago.
So let me ask this question, from an outsider looking in, and most people are on the outside, how much of an impact, and one question about the coaching is Warren Sapp. No, I don't think he's technically the defensive line coach. He's like a defensive assistant, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So, but you see him all over the place. You see him, in posts that are online, on social media. He's getting after it. How much of an impact do we think that Warren Sapp is going to have? Because for me, I think he's going to have a tremendous impact because the guy knows football. It seems like he's really invested in trying to teach these kids how to be good. Because Warren Sapp, yes, he was big, he was quick, but Warren Sapp also was a technician with his hands when he was playing. Is that relaying over to the guys? Is he really getting after? Because, again, everything you see online, it looks like Warren Sapp is having an absolute blast, and those kids are loving playing for him.
Yeah, we actually got a chance to talk to Warren Sapp yesterday, and he's loving life. He joked that all he was doing before was on his couch watching MSNBC, and so he loves having this drive in his life. It took 16 years after he retired from the NFL before he even entertained the notion of coaching. It was something that he was set on not doing. But he came out last year and bonded with some of the players and got the itch to do it. And he actually had to go and earn his college degree because he hadn't finished that up when he was at Miami. So he had to do put in some work before he was able to join the staff. He's brought so much energy to the practice fields every day. He admits, though, he's learning. This is his first time ever coaching. He's got all this knowledge, and you need to be able to relay that and then have the player replicate it. And that's a learning process for him. So that's why it's great that you don't just thrust him into being the full-time defensive line coach and making him recruit as well. So he's able to form these bonds with the guys. He says that, he'll get calls at 5:30 in the morning to go in the facilities and watch film with guys. So he's a great resource from that standpoint. Damian Lewis is their defensive line coach, and he's a first-year coach on Colorado staff. He was a 10-year NFL vet. It's interesting because he also played at Miami, and he came in after Warren Sapp, and he was kind of compared to Warren Sapp during his career. So both those guys have a lot of NFL experience, whereas Lewis has a little bit more of that coaching experience. He was the defensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks for a couple of years. So they balance each other out pretty well in that regard.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was just good to see. Look, Warren Sapp, I mean, for me, just growing up, I mean, he kind of played a little bit before I played. Just the guy was incredible. And to see the stuff online on how much he seems to be enjoying it, how much he is getting after it, and then teaching these guys. Look, we don't get everything, so I'm sure he's in guys' faces like you need to be. I like the fact that Warren said, number one, I love that what you said. It took a little work for him to actually be a coach. And for me and for people on the outside that are looking in should think, you know what? He didn't have to do this. So if he took the time to get his degree, that means he's got a little bit invested in it, Adam, that it wasn't just, okay, I'll go down here for a little bit and coach these guys. No, I got to do some work before I'm even able to go and help coach these guys. So that's another thing that CU should hang their hat on. That's a good thing. You got some good coaches there. I like what Warren Sapp's doing. Moving on to the team here, is there a game on Colorado's schedule this season that could be a game that says, okay, if they win this game, this could really turn the tide and get the momentum started for them? Last year, again, we talked about this just a second ago, it kind of got fooled the first game because TCU just clearly wasn't as good as what people thought they were going to be. Having said that, is there a game this year, and whether it's conference, out of conference, that if CU can go win this game that says, you know what, we are a pretty good football team. We are different from what maybe the perceive what we're going to be. Let's get the momentum rolling on this thing.
Yeah, it's tough to pinpoint that game because they do have 5 preseason ranked teams on their schedule, but they don't face any of those teams until October when Kansas State comes to Boulder. So it's going to be I don't know if there's this one game that you look to in non-conference, maybe at Nebraska, just from the standpoint that that's going to be a really tough road environment. You're going to be an underdog in that football game. Some people will point to the NDSU game in terms of it will be a test for them. There's no question about that. And it's going to be a popular pick for national prognosticators to pick NDSU just because of their history knocking off power conference teams. But this is not the same NDSU team that's done a lot of that damage in the past. They're going to have a first-year coach. It's going to be in Boulder. So I'm not quite as worried about that game if I'm a Colorado fan, but you go out to Nebraska and you play them really for the last time in the foreseeable future. They don't have any other future games with Nebraska, and that's in Colorado's eyes their biggest rival. And they've beaten the Cornhuskers 3 times since both schools left the Big 12 in non-conference play. So this would keep that streak going for a very long time. So I think for Colorado fans would point to that game. In terms of a national message sending game, I think it's just to keep winning games early on. And then you get into that meat of the schedule against Kansas State, against you're going to play Oklahoma State, Utah, Arizona later. And so those will be the games that it's pretty clear in my eyes that the floor of this team is substantially higher. And I've said many times that I don't know what that ceiling is. And I don't think we're going to know really until we get into October and November.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense. Last question, and I'll get you out of here, Adam. You're talking about we won't know, exactly what anything would look like until later on. Because, again, they're going to face 5 preseason ranked teams. The schedule gets tougher as it moves on. having said that, at this year with Colorado, with this team, with whether it's expectations or whatever the case may be, what does a good season at Colorado look like this year? Is it 8-4? Is it 7-5, 9-3, or 6-6? What does a good season actually look like that not number one, that Coach Prime could live with, fans could live with, and administrators could live with?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you could ask 10 people and you'd get 10 different answers on that,
right?
Because Colorado was 1-11, the worst FBS program in the country 2 years ago. And so
Right.
There are some people that look at that 4-8 and go, well, Colorado improved substantially in year one under Coach Prime. And then there are people that go, why is Colorado getting any attention? They went 4-8. And so there's this divide in that sense. There's no question that you've got to get to a bowl game this year. You've got Shedeur Sanders at quarterback and one of the most versatile players in the history of college football in Travis Hunter. So you've got to maximize this last year that they're in Boulder. And so there are some people that would think 6-6 is a success because of where they were 2 years ago. I don't think so. I think if you have indeed improved the Lions as much as we think they have, and you've got that skill talent, then this should be a 7-8 win team, and maybe more than that if things all come together. So I think 7 or 8 wins is the number you should be looking for in terms of really considering this a successful season for Colorado.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Adam. I think 7 or 8 wins should be the barrier. The reason being is because of the conference. The conference is going to have so much, stability, I guess is a word, but parity is the better word. So if you can get to that 7-8 win mark, first of all, somebody's going to have to lose those games. Everybody can't have 7 or 8 wins. But the difference between teams, it's not going to be, even though somebody may only win 2 or 3 conference games, they may only lose, let's say they lose 5 conference games. It might be by combined 11 points or something like that. So the difference between 3 and 9 in the Big 12 is not going to be that big a difference as far as quality of the teams are concerned, even though the records will be different. And I think Colorado's got to inch their way up into that higher echelon for it to be a successful season. I'm right there with you. So number one, Adam, thank you again, man, for the time that you have given us on the Big 12 Insiders. We've been trying to grow this thing, and then it's been successful because of people just like you giving us your time, man. So I wanted to thank you, number one, for doing that, because you don't have to. And so we 100% appreciate you. Number two, the Colorado-Kansas State game, I'll be out there. So awesome. My wife said she wanted to go to Boulder. First of all, she just said, I need to go to Boulder because I just want to see what it looks like. And I'm like, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. And so I will be out there. So I will have to look you up when we get out there, my man. So I just want to appreciate you, or tell you that I appreciate you. And I'll see you out there soon. And thank you for your time.
Awesome. I appreciate you and the work you do on this podcast. So anytime, I always enjoy coming on with you.
All right. Thank you.